Despite the fact that they have been direct competitors since the 1950s, McDonald's has always been larger. They're like the original fast food icon in terms of the system we use today, and no other hamburger place has ever had a realistic chance of catching up to them. However, Burger King has traditionally been the closest competitor to McDonald's in terms of sales and market share. It is believed that they got the idea of starting a fast food restaurant after seeing the success of the original McDonald's. I have to point out that this was before Ray Kroc, when McDonald's was still completely unknown outside of Southern California. So the fact that they were already influencing a new restaurant opening on the other side of the country in Florida, I think it's pretty amazing. James McLemore and David Egerton were classmates at Cornell University. For the previous 5 years, they had been franchisees of Burger King. In 1959, they were able to take advantage of the company's poor condition and buy it from the original founders. From that point on, it started making a bunch of positive changes, such as getting rid of that Insta broiler and replacing it with their now famous flame broiler. Additionally, they dropped the Insta from the name of the company. McDonald's was very careful about it, paying close attention to each individual franchisee, forcing each location to wear the same uniforms, serve the same foods, and have the same prices. They forced everything to be extremely similar between locations, and that way, it didn't matter which McDonald's you went to, you would be getting the same experience. Not quite the case with Burger King. Many fast food restaurants were influenced by this, including Burger King, but in a much different way. Stepping away from the topic of franchising for a moment, in 1974, Burger King introduced "Have It Your Way," which is widely considered to be their most well-known slogan ever. This was a direct response to the well-known advertising campaign that McDonald's had launched earlier in the same year. You're probably familiar with it. It was a jingle about the transition of the Big Mac's ingredients to all-beef patties. Special sauce, the whole thing, kind of harkens back to how everything was so uniform at McDonald's. The song listed the items that would be included in a Big Mac. Therefore, Burger King attempted to expose that as a negative. You know, trying to seem superior by advertising how, if you go to Burger King, you can customize your orders however you like. Their campaign even featured their own very catchy song. Hold the pickle, hold the lettuce. Special orders don't upset us. I'm singing way too much in this video. They only used that campaign for a few years though, because they felt that it also reminded the customers of the wait times at Burger King from all of those customized orders. But they did bring it back, because after all that time, they still considered it to be the most memorable slogan. Alright, back to my list. In 1977, Donald Smith was a senior executive at McDonald's, who was lured away from Burger King when they hired him as their new president and CEO. He then replaced most of Burger King's management team with people from McDonald's, who then worked together to implement changes to make the company operate much more like McDonald's. The most significant part of this was probably making the restaurants more similar to each other. They also created stricter franchising agreements and conducted unscheduled inspections. It all started with a Burger King commercial, for that year starring actresses such as Sarah Michelle Gellar when she was 5 years old. That one stands out because it was the first time either one of the two restaurants had ever mentioned the other one by name in a commercial. They made comparisons about the size of the burgers and how they were cooked. McDonald's actually filed a lawsuit against Burger King for some of their advertising claims. When McDonald's introduced the McDLT 2 years later, it was essentially their response to the Whopper, with a bit of a twist. Of course, it was served in a special styrofoam container, with the food separated in two different sections, in an attempt to keep the hot side hot and the cool side cool. However, to me, this seems more like a gimmick than anything else. The McDLT was discontinued after less than a decade, most likely due to the bigger Whopper. Just 1 year later, Burger King increased the size of their Whopper just slightly to 4.2 ounces. Technically making it bigger than the Quarter Pounder over at McDonald's. And you better believe that they spent $30 million on an advertising campaign telling the public all about it, the bigger Whopper. This commercial right here went as far as to have two fast food employees crying that were meant to represent McDonald's and Wendy's, upset about how their burgers were now comparatively smaller. I mean, this was some pretty aggressive advertising. However, that campaign wasn't at all successful, nor were any of them really at that point. Toward the end of the 19th century, in the United States of America, the Whopper was initially tested as the Double Supreme. It was initially given the name Big King. I would assume to remind people of the Big Mac when it was introduced again. It does not have that additional bun in the middle, but the rest of the ingredients are pretty much the same. The advertisements made a direct reference to McDonald's attempt to persuade viewers that the Big King is superior to other McDonald's products by comparing it to the Big Mac and highlighting the fact that it is flame broiled and contains 75% more beef than the Big Mac. Along with this claim, the advertisements also stated that the Big King is served in a flame broiled bun. They introduced them with a big $70 million advertising campaign that included the cost of licensing Mr. Potato Head that was mostly centered around how the new fries were better than the fries at McDonald's. The crispy new Burger King fries beat McDonald's fries. Another major menu change just a few months later when they introduced their new fries. I guess they started treating them with potato starch and it somehow forms a crispy coating. I don't know how it works, but they introduced them with a major menu change. They wanted to open a restaurant for one day in Atlanta, which is between the two companies' headquarters, and sell a burger that was a combination of the Big Mac and the Whopper. It would have been for charity, and they wanted it to be on an International Day of Peace as a gesture of good faith, seemingly ending this feud between them. Probably again moronic. Burger King took out these full-page ads in the Chicago Tribune and the New York Times, asking McDonald's to join up with them. Burger King had been through a number of management ownership transitions. In 2002, the company was sold to Texas Pacific Group for $1.5 billion so that Diego could better focus on their core business. 4 years later, the company went public. And then 4 years after that, it was purchased again by a private equity firm for more than $3 billion. Finally, 4 years after that, Burger King merged with Tim Hortons to create a restaurant chain. Going back to the list, the last thing I wanted to talk about is the McWhopper. Perhaps you remember this one because it occurred in 2015, but it's possible that you don't. I think it's unlikely, but do you think Burger King will ever pull ahead or maybe even fall behind Wendy's again? Also, if you have any other thoughts about Burger King versus McDonald's or anything else I talked about in this video, leave them in the comments. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks.